Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Morris Lilienthal, who is a partner at Martinson and Beason PC, who is an Alabama personal injury attorney. Morris, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I always love talking to all kinds of different people in different parts of the country, industries, and as an attorney, I know that you see a lot because you work with entrepreneurs and you work with business owners in your local area. So I want to get into what some of the practice areas you talk about and some of the tips that you would give to entrepreneurs. But get us started off with a little bit of your background, what led you to the legal field, and then what do you do there in Alabama?
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Alabama, moved around a little bit, originally born in Selma, Alabama, which is kind of a civil rights history here in Alabama, and then really grew up in West Alabama in a little town called Carrollton, Alabama. Went to school there and went to undergrad at a small liberal arts school at Maryville College in Maryville, Tennessee. Played football up there, and then came back to Birmingham, Alabama, to Samford University, to the Cumberland School of Law, and did that. But my mother worked for the local district judge growing up, so I kind of grew up at the courthouse. And so school would get out. If it wasn't sports, football wasn't going on, I'd be up at the courthouse mingling around, and I'd go sit in judge's office and talk to him, or I'd go sit up on the bench and do. So it was kind of always in my blood there, just from kind of growing up around the courthouse. And, it was down to basically either being a football coach or going to law school, and law school won out. I still have a passion for sports, and I think a lot of the lessons and traits that I took from being an athlete carry over in terms of being a lawyer, and really pay dividends, and the hard work, dedication, and work ethic and resiliency that we're all going through right now with the coronavirus outbreak are things that I learned that have paid off. So I've been practicing 17 years this year. My firm is here in Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville is just an awesome city. It's a mid-sized city, a couple 100,000 people, one of the fastest growing cities in America. We have a huge tech industry here. We have more engineers per capita than any city in the country. Mike, you wouldn't think of Huntsville, Alabama. Where is that? But we do. We have a huge military base, Redstone Arsenal, with several four-star generals and all kinds of other military people here, and we have Boeing, Northrop Grumman, a lot of tech companies associated with defense contracts. And Marshall Space Flight Center is based out of here, so if you've ever heard of Space Camp, Huntsville's the home of the original Space Camp. And so we've got a lot going on here. My firm was founded in 1937, so the firm kind of grew up with the town. And so we are a traditional law firm still. We are a full-service firm with 5 lawyers, about 14 staff, and we niche down, but we each individually niche down. So we have certain partners that do specific areas of practice. So it's really great. So I've got a partner that does estate planning and corporate law. And so if I have an accident case that I'm handling for somebody and they get done, and I talk to them about the importance of an estate plan. I ask them if they have one, and if they don't, then my partner can help them with it. So over the years, the firm has kind of grown with the town, and we've added lawyers and practice areas to best fit the needs of our community and our client base.
There's a couple things that I want to unpack in that, because a couple items popped out at me. Number one is learning from sports and discipline and things like that. And then number two is what you just said there with specific partners that focus on specific areas. So first, speak a little bit about, what can someone that just loves sports but goes, maybe I'm not cut out for that, so I've got to have my fallback career in whatever that it is. But in reality, you're learning from that time you spend in sports with teamwork, with discipline. How does that play into a business, no matter what the profession is?
Every day it does. Yeah. So, whatever sports, even extracurricular activities, things that you're involved in, and as a youth and even in college, the discipline, the hard work, the getting up, the extra hours, all the teamwork and the interpersonal relationships. If you're in sports or you're involved in clubs and some kind of activity like that, that you have to learn to work with people, and you've got to learn your role and be able to count on other people in most cases. And those are things as a lawyer and as a business owner I do every day. We have staff members here that we've got to interact with and learn how to get along with and be able to rely upon them to do their job. And, I know there's going to be ups and downs, just, like in a football game, we may have a turnover or we may can't move the ball, and get a first down for 2 quarters, but we've got to keep battling and work our game plan because we've planned out to do and put the dedication in. And same thing here in the legal field. So in a litigation case, I've got to do my research. I've got to do my investigation. I've got to take depositions and do discovery. And all those things are leading me down the road to hopefully a successful resolution in the case, whether that's a settlement or a trial for my client. And that's, kind of goes back to football. And so, the kind of difficulties that we're having now in today's times and concerns that we're having, I lean back on, the hard times that I had and the running the extra sprints and the 100-degree heat with football equipment on weather that I didn't want to do it. I lean on that instinctively, I think, in what I do day in, day out here at the firm.
It makes me think, too, when you think about business and football analogies, you think about, or you hear this a lot, it's all blocking and tackling. The coaches, you might have some fancy plays, but you've got to be good at blocking and tackling because that's the foundation. Well, you mentioned research, one of the things you just mentioned. Well, if you just blow through research because it's not really the fun, glitzy stuff that, you would prefer to do, but you might miss out on something really big. So, comparing football and blocking and tackling to research, you better be really focused, really good at that, because that becomes then the foundation of the case that you're working on. And you might pick up that nugget, that gem that really breaks something open in the defense or in the prosecution, whatever that you're researching.
Sure.
But too many times people think, it's just research. Let me just blow through that to check the box. So speak a little bit about, even from a legal standpoint and from an entrepreneurial standpoint, boy, there's some things in our business that aren't really the fun things to do, but you got to do it. And lo and behold, there might be that time when you're doing it and focusing, and that becomes the breakthrough in what you're working on.
There's no doubt. It's all about the fundamentals and the small things. Little things matter. We all want to hit the home run or have the 50-yard touchdown Hail Mary pass, but that's not what happens in sports on a day in, day out basis, and that's not what happens in a case. You don't really have that Perry Mason moment 99% of the time in a litigation case. Where your case is won or made, where you win on Friday nights in high school or Saturday or Sundays in college or pro football or any other sport, is the summer. It's the fundamentals. It's doing the little things. You have to do and drill it down and get it to where it is ingrained to you that these things are important. And when you do that, and then that 1 out of 10 times when you're doing that research that you're talking about, you find that nugget. It's like, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
This is why we do this, because it makes a difference at the end of the day. Now, you may know that most of the time you're not going to find that. But if you don't, I can tell you one thing, 100% of the time, you're not going to find it if you don't do the research.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't do it with the right approach and attitude, you ever heard that story about I don't know, I'm probably going to butcher the story, but you'll remember probably, the brick masons. They're working on this building, and someone walks by and they ask the 3 guys, what are you doing? I'm out here slaving in the hot sun. Oh, okay. What are you doing? To the next guy, oh, well, I'm building this building. Oh, okay. Well, the third guy is like, what are you doing? He's like, I am participating in the team that is building this wonderful building that is going to serve the community. You see where I'm going. It's right. Their attitudes of that. So, yes, you've got to check the box and do the research or fill in the blank with whatever task that's at hand that isn't really the fun thing to do. But when you do it with the right attitude, that does open up your mind or ability or opportunity to see something or do something and make a really difference. Is it every time? Nope. But when it does come up, it could be that catalyst to go, you know what? Those 30 times I did that task that nothing really came up about it, but the 31st time, wow, that makes everything worth it. So I think that that's a really big mindset shift that people need to make.
100% agree, and I think that comes from the top. And you know, so if you're a solopreneur and you're doing this on your own, then you've got to have that ingrained into you and learn that. But if you run a business and you've got employees and staff that work for you, you need to ingrain them in that and educate them on why this is so important, and encourage them along the way to stay on top of it. And then when they do hit that home run for you and they find that little nugget, reward them and compliment them on what they're doing to encourage them and let them understand why that's so important. Because you can tell them it's important, but when they actually find what they need and it's critical in a case or in your situation, then you explain to them why. You know, so one of the things that I try to do as an entrepreneur and as a business owner is explain, not only tell my employees what I'm expecting of them and do, but I try to explain to them and let them understand the aura of everything around it and what's involved in it, so they get the full picture. So when they're motivated and they get the picture, they understand why it's important, and to give them feedback on it because it's important. They want feedback.
100%, and it's again, I tend to think in analogies, but it reminds me of, you know, do you chastise the person that didn't quite do that thing the right way, or do you reward them when they do something that was good? Well, obviously you reward them because it makes them want to do more. And there's a book that I read years and years ago called Whale Done, like Shamu the whale, instead of well done. And, you know, in a synopsis, it was this fictional story of this business consultant that was at SeaWorld, and he's like, man alive, these trainers are training that big old whale to do all these tricks. So he talks to them afterwards and says, what do you do? Zap them when they do something wrong? And how do you train them? And they're like, no. All we do is we teach them to do one little thing and reward them when they do it right, and then reward the next one and the next one, and we reward that. And he goes, huh. And he goes back to his company, starts doing that, and it transforms. So I think what you just said was so huge, is teaching them and telling them the big picture, and then also rewarding each step along the way, because people want more of that appreciation and little minor recognition. That's a big piece to success in any business.
Agreed 100%.
Hey, so you also mentioned the areas of expertise in your firm and your partners that have different specializations. And I'll bet you mentioned estate planning. I'll bet you took a course in law school on estate planning, and I'll bet you could speak to estate planning, but maybe that's not your wheelhouse, and maybe it would spread you too thin if you're working with a client that goes, oh, we do need that, and you're like, okay, let's move. No, you bring in people that their highest and best use of their talent is that category, that specialization. So I really like that concept. And is that something that you guys have done, you know, since the inception, or is that kind of evolved and transitioned over time?
I think it's evolved over time. I think, you know, certainly when the firm was founded, you know, in 1937, you know, it was a solo practice, and then it became a family practice, and it's grown over the years. But since I've been here for 12 plus years, we've each kind of specialized, and we try to be that resource to be there for our clients. You know, people come to us in different ways, and they come into the firm, and, you know, it depends upon, you know, whether they're contact, a client, or some kind of marketing thing that they get to us. But when they come in and we help them with that particular area of law that they need, whether it's personal injury, real estate, corporate law, whatever, we try to let them know, hey, we're here for you. We are full service and do now. It may not be Morris or it may not be Doug that helps you with this, but we can help you with it. So if you ever have a need, call us. And then if we can't help you, there are things that we don't do. We don't do bankruptcy law. That is a specialized area of law. But we have contacts in the legal community that do, and we can put you in touch with somebody. That way they feel they have a safety net to reach out to us if there's a legal need out there. And I think that's important for clients and business and owners out there in whatever field you're in. I think people don't have the right mindset, Mike. And what I think happens is people call somebody's business and they say, well, do you do this, thinking they might do this? And it's like, well, no, we don't do that. No, thank you, goodbye. Yeah, well, they're missing an opportunity, and they need to be making sure they've got that person's contact information to market to them when they do need their services, and two, they're missing an opportunity to connect that person with somebody else in their network to build that relationship with that referral partner.
And you could have a relationship with a quote unquote competitor right? And if you find the right referral partner, strategic alliance that does that specific area of law where you feel comfortable, we don't do that, but I've got a colleague that does, let me introduce you. And then you feel like that person and you stay in touch with them, develop that relationship with the client, the prospect. Now all of a sudden that colleague who you sent business to, they might have the same thing come up where they say, hey, I don't do that area, but you need to talk to my colleague Morris. So I think that's a really big piece that too many people just either let slip through the cracks or don't take that one extra step. And that's gold. That's like the analogy of the gold miner that stopped digging, 3 feet before striking it rich, and they just need to take that one extra little step. So that's a really a big nugget. Hey, let's wrap up with this. I know that you do a whole lot of things in marketing, online, social media. You've got Facebook shows and tips from Mo that are not necessarily legal based. So
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your approach to that kind of teaching and connection where it's not really legal, but it's you, and that's building your personal brand. And how does that then reflect back on your business?
Sure. So, over the last, say, 3 to 4 years, I've become very active and involved on social media. Myself and my firm are very involved in the community, and when we give back in so many different ways. And I'm a people person, and I love to interact with people and do in person and online. And so my philosophy and my firm's philosophy has been, we want to give back, and we want to add value to our community. And so one of the ways, a couple of the ways that I've done that, Mike, is one is I started off about 3.5 years ago doing what I call Tips from Mo, which are 60-second video tips. And I do them I used to do them about every day. Now I do them a couple of days a week. And you're right, they're not about the law 99% of the time. They're about, things that inspire me from that I see in the community, things at the ball field, with my son's, baseball or basketball team that I see that inspires me or reminds me, or life hacks, little tips or tricks that I picked up that I thought, man, people probably don't know about this, and let me share this with them. And they're 60-second tips. And it's a way to add value. And I do that on a larger scale with my Facebook Live show called The Mo Show Live. And I have on nonprofits, local leaders, city council, mayors. I've had on the international president of Rotary International, which has 1.6 million members, and I'm proud to be a Rotarian. I've had on the national president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which does tie a little bit into my legal practice. Mm-hmm. But we weren't talking about legal. We were talking about the dangers of drunk driving. So I try to have people on that have a story to tell, individuals as well, that inspire people. And I've had a lot of guests like that. And I had some fun shows. I mean, I've had shows on with 4 or 5 lawyers that all played SEC college football, and we talked about what you and I were talking about earlier, the things that they learned from football that set them up to be a successful lawyer and business person. So these are things that I think if someone is looking to grow in their community and reach out and meet new people and network and share value, it has provided me opportunities to get out and network with people that I would have not been able to do. And it's done naturally because people want to get on and talk about their cause or talk about what's going on in their city or doing. And it's a great way to call you up and say, hey, Mike, I see that your nonprofit's doing this. I'd love to have you on my Facebook Live show or my podcast or whatever it may be. Let's talk about that. And can you further explain that? And we can share that out, kind of probably some of what you're doing with your podcast. And I think many business owners can do it. And for me, it's allowed me to network with people. And it's allowed me now in the last 2 years to speak at multiple trial lawyer and lawyer conferences on how lawyers should do social media. So it's just kind of grown beyond my wildest dreams, and it's been great.
And it just touches on how you're wired, because if you were afraid of the camera, if you really didn't know what to say to people, it would have never worked. But when you are a people person and you appreciate, getting to know people for no other reason other than, then it just seems to work. And it reminds me too, have you ever read the book The Go-Giver by Bob Berg?
I have.
Yeah, I've had him on my podcast a couple times, and just what a wonderful book. Just that fictional story of teaching people how to give value and serve and just seeing where the chips fall. And it's not like if I do this, you must do that. So I think that's right. A really neat thing. So, hey, wrap us up, Morris. What's the best way can people reach out, connect with you, your firm, and also check out some of your Facebook Lives?
Yeah, so the best way to kind of connect with me and see what I'm doing on social media is themoshow.live. It's a website that has my Facebook Live show, tips. I have funny weekend work shirts that I wear periodically when I'm up at the office that people get a kick out of. And all my social media links are there, Mike. And then if you want to check out the firm, you can go to martinsonandbeason.com and find more information about our firm there.
Well, Morris, thank you so much for coming on. It was really a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.